Hare Krishna. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine. Jai Prabhupada. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Shunyamari Paschachara Satarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. As the rock bands say when they come to a new city, hello Australia, hello Sydney, hello Brisbane, hello Australia. So Sundari Radha has asked us to talk about the spiritual master as a representative of Krishna and appreciating that, or we could say understanding what that means. And you have two ways to understand. Maybe there's more than two, but two ways that come to mind. And one way is, of course, you understand from Shastra, what is the Shastric evidence. And then you understand, at least I understand from my own experience, of what it was like for me in my appreciation of Srila Prabhupada. And I remember that when I first read Bhagavad Gita, then I had some understanding of who the spiritual master was, but it was, even though it was explained in the Gita, it wasn't clear. I mean, I heard a lot about spiritual master, but it wasn't really clear, although I understood that Prabhupada was the person who was delivering me, and that was his function. I didn't understand the relationship. It just wasn't clear. And it took some time to understand, as it took time for me to understand everything in Krishna consciousness. Everything was, it was slow. And one of the things that we experience, and I'm sure you experience it as well, that as you progress in devotional service, what you understand more deeply. And our understanding of Srila Prabhupada developed with service, because you understand the spiritual master through service. And it also developed to a different level after Prabhupada left, because we had to understand what Prabhupada had said so many times, that the most important aspect of the spiritual master is his instructions, and you associate with him through his instructions. And Prabhupada traveled enough that that everybody could see him, or practically every devotee could see him, at least for a few days every year. But obviously, after Prabhupada left, that wasn't the case. And so the only way we could then associate with Prabhupada was through his service and through his instructions. And we were forced to realize Prabhupada's presence that way, because there was no other way to realize it. And in the beginning, it was difficult. And I'm sure all my God brothers and God sisters will say that the relationship grew deeper over time, realizing that Prabhupada was still present, and not only realizing it theoretically, but as we're speaking here, realizing it practically. Krishna Karshani, I'm in Las Vegas. We just had a temple opening. It's on Facebook somewhere.
ISKCON of Las Vegas.
Go to ISKCON of Las Vegas after class, and you will see. There were about 500-600 people came yesterday. And it started on Friday. So you can see the videos, photos, and there'll be a video of this being made, because one devotee was shooting videos all weekend, and he'll compile that. So my first experience, I think my most intense experience of Srila Prabhupada was meeting him, and still after meeting him, I didn't understand the relationship, not consciously. It was only when I moved into the temple and was rendering service 24/7, basically, that I began to understand. And I think one of the reasons is because moving into the temple was a commitment to Prabhupada, and also I needed to depend on his instructions to be able to follow all the principles, which I didn't have to do before I moved in. So I think that really was the catalyst for understanding the position of the spiritual master. And we learn in Bhagavad Gita that in the Vedic concept of guru, or not the Vedic concept, but the actual concept of guru as opposed to teacher as we understand it in conception of teacher, at least as we have it in the West, there's no relationship other than you learn from the teacher during the class, you do your homework, and outside of that there's little, if any, relationship, and very little relationship of service, although it depends on the culture, but generally we don't connect learning to service. Like I have to, outside of class, I will go to my teacher's house and clean it, and that way. So that's there in the Gita. Tadvidi, just try to understand the truth. Tadvidi, how pranipatena, we have to surrender and seva, service, and then Tadvidi pranipatena, paripashnena. And paripashnena means inquire, so that means you're hearing, you're listening. But Prabhupada said this is a synergistic formula, and the listening doesn't work unless, obviously, you're submissive, you can't challenge. And number two, you have to serve. So you may take a class and not believe everything your teacher says and not serve them, and you can still get good grades. But to actually understand the knowledge, there has to be service. And Prabhupada said the service is what gives you the mercy. Krishna's pleased. Of course, the humility to be able to hear, and then service, and then through service you get mercy, and with mercy you understand. Not only understand, intellectually anybody can understand, but you realize it, and you find that scholars, they can understand intellectually, but they don't actually understand it as we do. Because we're engaged in service, we get mercy, and by mercy we understand. So when I moved in the temple, obviously I was engaged in service, and I became much more aware of my relationship with Prabhupada because it was centered around service in the temple. And I know before I moved in, even though I met Prabhupada, which was of course a highlight and very powerful, I still didn't understand the relationship. But when I engaged in service, then I understood it and felt Prabhupada's presence. And I've often said that devotees who preach and devotees who, when they start preaching and they start doing book distribution, they generally have a realization that they feel very close to Prabhupada, because the preaching and the book distribution it's his mission, and so we're serving that mission, and they feel very close, even though they never met Prabhupada. Or for us, we felt very close, even though we weren't, Prabhupada wasn't present. And those engaged in deity worship, for example, they felt very close because Prabhupada wanted the deities taken care of. So, everything that we did, if we connected it with Prabhupada, we felt close. Of course, the book distribution was a natural connection because it was his books. But if you opened or maintained a temple, the temples were his temples. You cleaned the temple, it was his temple. So our relationship with Prabhupada was developing so much through his service. Yeah. So, but one of the first realizations I had was that, like Shastra says, Guru na sasyat, you shouldn't be a guru You shouldn't be a swajani, a relative. Guru nasasyat, swajani nasasyat, pita, a father. Sasyat. You shouldn't take any position of authority if you can't deliver your dependence from birth and death. So when I met Prabhupada, I understood this is the person that now will liberate me from birth and death. And I was definitely confused and wanting someone to enlighten me. And so, looking, as we were when we were young, looking for truth. And then meeting Prabhupada. And so when I met him, it was like, this is the person that is going to do what no other person has done. So that's the special position of the spiritual master. And I think for us it was special because if Prabhupada hadn't come, then we wouldn't have his Bhagavad Gita and we wouldn't have that liberation. So it wasn't, it was very clear that this was the person who was liberating us. And I felt disappointed with my father and with everyone, because no one had that knowledge, no one could enlighten me, and I really wanted it. And so my first appreciation of Prabhupada was like, here's the real father. And I saw Prabhupada like my father. My father was only 8 years younger than Prabhupada. So it was like my father was 46 when I was born. So he was born in 1904 and Prabhupada was born in 1896. So my father was like the age of my grandfather, almost. Yeah, it could have been my grandfather. So I related very much to Prabhupada like my father because it was almost the same age. And it was like there was this switch. It's like I had a new father, or like a real father. The other thing that always stood out for me was the Shastric statement, and the statement that Prabhupada often made is that when you're ready, Krishna sends a guru, and so Krishna gives you guru, guru gives you Krishna. And the guru is the external manifestation, Sakshat Hari, he's directly Krishna. And what always stood out for me was that we don't have a connection with Krishna, at least that we're aware of, or it's very faint. And so Krishna sends a guru and he said, you serve this person like you serve me. You love this person as if you would love me. In other words, here's this person, treat him like you would treat me, and that way you'll learn how to serve me, you'll learn how to love me by loving and serving this person. And it was so tangible for us because Krishna, even though we understand Krishna's there in his holy name, he's there in the deity and so forth, that realization was not as deep as, here's Srila Prabhupada, I can serve him. And of course, the affection that we had for Prabhupada was very deep and intense, and our affection for Krishna was just developing. So last year I heard a statement, and I've said this before, and it really struck me. It said that, I don't know where the statement's from, it said, but the first time you realize what love is when you meet your spiritual master. Because, as we know, we don't know what love is because we're so absorbed in satisfying ourselves. And then you meet the spiritual master, and people say, well, how do you know who my spiritual master is? Or if you already have one and you're thinking of maybe someone as your Siksha guru, how do you know? And one of the ways you know is that you feel very intense affection. You want to serve this person. It's natural, it's spontaneous. You want to surrender, it just comes out of your heart naturally. And so that's how we felt with Srila Prabhupada. It was just see him and you just want to serve him. And what was so interesting about it is that there was still lust and greed and so many contaminations in our heart. And how was it that a conditioned soul with all these contaminations have such a strong desire to serve Prabhupada. And that then proved that statement that it's true, that we really didn't have love for Krishna, but we had love for Prabhupada. And that was the first experience of what love is, because every other love was based on some bodily connection. And it's natural to love your mother, to love your girlfriend, to love your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, your sister, your brother. That was natural, but in a sense, there was no blood relation reason to love Prabhupada, and we experienced loving him more than we loved our own parents, our own wives, children. It was just amazing. And so that, I always felt that was like Krishna's gift to us. That, okay, you can't love me, love this person. And then this person comes, and it's so easy to love because that person is attractive, and that person's basically giving their life to you. And Prabhupada traveled around the world, he translated books at night. And so it was obvious that he was giving first and foremost, he was giving all his love, his time to us. And every letter I ever wrote, Prabhupada wrote back. Every letter he received, he wrote back. And even the letters were foolish, and asking the same question over. Like I asked Prabhupada the question, he said no, and then like a year later I said, and I asked the same question, because he said no. It was like just bothering him, Prabhupada, I have to do this. No. A year later, Prabhupada, I really have to do this. No. And he wrote the letter, and he took time to explain why I shouldn't do it. And so, actually, there are a lot of letters I wanted to do things, and Prabhupada said no. Spiritual master is the two relations with the spiritual master. Himane is asking, why is he compared to the father? Is father and friend. The spiritual master is also your best friend. But there's formality, because Sakshat Hari means like Hari. So he has to be honored like Hari, like Krishna. So there's formality. You see the spiritual master, you bow down. Here is the representative. It's like the person, he's wearing the uniform. Now he's delegated. He's Krishna's delegation. So you have to treat him like Krishna's delegation. But there's also another side, which you say, here's my closest friend, because I can tell him what's in my heart, what's in my mind. And of course it'll be different for each disciple. And those who travel with Prabhupada were very close. The friendship aspect was obviously stronger. And for us who weren't so close, the father aspect was obviously stronger. Father is the one who, you could say, the one who gives you enlightenment, who guides you. That's the duty of the father. And second birth, you take initiation, so then you take second birth. So the Vedas become the mother, and the Guru becomes the father. And then part of the process of initiation, it's required that you change your name, and the Guru gives you a name. So that's a father aspect. So and then it may depend on you. But for me specifically, I always felt let down by my father and by other authorities because they had no knowledge. And so when Prabhupada came with knowledge, it was like, okay, this is the duty of the father, because the Shastra says that's what the father's supposed to do. And you shouldn't even become a father if you can't liberate your children. So, like Prabhupada would often say, I left my 5 children, but now I have hundreds or thousands of children. Or I left, Prabhupada talks about how his material life fell apart and how he left everything and how it was difficult and how Krishna forced him. And in the early days that he came, he had so little. And he said, but now I can see it was all Krishna's mercy. I have so much. Krishna gave me so much. He gave me so many children. No, Prabhupada also saw his disciples like children. Actually, we were like his grandchildren. So that relationship was naturally there. Father is caring, Father takes care of you. So spiritually, we had our shelter, we were taken care of. There was nothing that we needed spiritually that Prabhupada wasn't giving us. So you feel that. And Krishna Karshani, I'll answer your question in a minute. And Prabhupada was very... One of the things that I noticed that Prabhupada did is he churned the relationship with his disciples whenever, at least he was personally present. In the early days of Los Angeles, when he would come back from his morning walk, all the devotees would line up and they would exchange flowers, bow down to Prabhupada and give him a flower. And then he was getting flowers, so he was giving flowers back. And it's something very simple, but it was this exchange. And Prabhupada was always exchanging in ways that would draw out our affection. And sometimes he would even say, if you love me, then do this. Follow. If you love me, then follow your initiation vows. If you feel indebted to me in any way, then I request you. Please distribute my books, like that. Open temples, whatever it was. So that exchange of love, that was talked about and it was nurtured. And that's, we could say, one of the duties of Guru is to nurture the affection for the disciple, for him, and for the disciple to nurture the affection. And also, the disciple wants to do something to please the Guru. So the Guru will show his mercy. And we understand, our philosophy is that everything depends on the mercy of Guru. Without your mercy, how can I do anything? And the mercy comes from pleasing. But it's not only that we wanted to please Prabhupada, he was also pleasing us. And his happiness was that we were happy, and he would, of course, give us so many things to do, and he knew we needed to do things, and he knew we liked to do things, big projects and so on. So he would give us those things, and that created a deeper connection. And the more we took responsibility, the more we felt connected. And I've been temple president 4 times, and I always felt my strongest connection to Prabhupada was either on book distribution or as a temple president. Well, also when I became Guru, because that was such a direct service and desire. But my point is, whenever I took more responsibility, I felt closer. I'm sure you feel that here with this temple project. And whenever I would try to do something that seemed impossible, but it was necessary, something Prabhupada definitely wanted, or specifically managing his temple, that it's like you're with him, you're so close. And you feel that. And then your love grows, and you feel his guidance. And when I was a young devotee, I was temple president, and sometimes it was difficult, and Prabhupada would come in dreams and say, it's okay. And so, not only did I feel his presence by taking the responsibility, but he would come in dreams to just let me know that, yeah, it's okay. I'm there, I know what's going on. And just keep doing it. And I'm happy. And it'll all work out. And so the relationship was much different than any relationship we ever had, because so much of that relationship was in separation, but at the same time it was so close. Another thing was that everything we did was on his order. So there was nothing that we were doing that wasn't connecting us to him. We'd go on Harinam every day. That was what he wanted us to do. We distributed back to Godheads. That's what he wanted us to do. We'd get up from Mangalarti. That's what he wanted us to do. So when you do what your spiritual master wants, then you naturally feel his presence. And the affection, you feel his affection through the instructions. I think that's very important. I know that a lot of the affection that you feel for your spiritual master comes through the spiritual master's realizations and instructions, because you feel that These are things which took him years and years or lifetimes to realize, that then he's giving them to you, and all of a sudden you get the realizations that he had, which you could never get. Or you get the Siddhanta, remove the confusion. Shastra says this, this, and this, and then spiritual master says, no, it's like this. And Prabhupada had to clarify certain issues, because misconceptions would come up, and devotees would go to India and hear from different people, become confused, or even just philosophically there were different perspectives we'd have by studying Shastra, and Prabhupada would just clarify it. No, it's like this, it's not like this. So there was also this connection that I'm getting so much from hearing, I'm learning so much, I'm growing so much, I'm getting so many realizations. So this natural indebtedness comes to the person who's picking you up out of the well of material life. And you could never understand certain things unless he explained them to you. And so now, and you're understanding what maybe you would never understand. And he's also taking the time to explain it. What to speak, 50 books of explaining it. So it's natural to feel indebted, but I think everyone has experience. But if you're not serving those orders, if you're not living the instruction, then it's like your connection becomes loosened or temporarily put on hold. You don't feel the connection, because the connection comes through hearing and through service. And it's not that just you can passively appreciate, although passive appreciation is necessary and it's good, but if it's not accompanied with service, you won't feel that the relationship is actually alive. It'll feel distant, and sometimes I feel if devotees are not connected well with their guru, then the relationship becomes a little ambiguous. Of course, they can have Siksha gurus. So when I say guru, I don't just mean Diksha guru, Siksha guru, but some guru. If there's no connection with hearing and following the instruction, of course you can hear so many devotees and follow the instructions of so many devotees, and guru is one, and you can see your guru and their instructions. So that's there also. But for some devotees, if they're not following the instructions their guru has given, or following some authority, then their relationship becomes a little ambiguous. Of course, many gurus will just say, well, follow your local authority. So that means you're following them by following the local authority. You're following them by doing what they've instructed. So, but without that following, sometimes the relationship becomes a little ambiguous. It's like they lose connection, especially if their spiritual master wanted them to do something specifically and they're not doing it. They can, I don't want to say they will, but some devotees lose a little bit of that closeness and connection, especially when a devotee becomes weak and they're not following well, and they don't chant their rounds and so on. So I always feel part of my connection to Prabhupada is my rounds, just finishing my rounds. If I don't finish my rounds one day, I feel like, oh, there's a disconnection. Of course, we have to make them up the next day, but on some occasions we don't get to finish our rounds due to circumstances, and I feel like, oh, like Prabhupada's like a little distant now from me. I haven't done what I promised. So even a little thing, well, of course it's not such a little thing. We made a vow to do that, and even we'll make it up the next day, but when we fail to execute an order of the spiritual master, something specific that he's given us, then we'll feel a little disconnection, won't we? Yeah, and when we follow that order, we'll feel more connected. So, Krishna Karshani is saying how to develop selfless love. We're conditioned. Still, we have different expectations towards our guru. Well, one of the Prabhupada sometimes talked about the disciple being the enjoyer of the guru, and he was one of the aspects of that he was discussing was enjoying what the guru has given him, the property, like spiritual. In this case, this is the temple my spiritual master started, so I will take over the temple and I'll use that temple to maintain myself. So that was an aspect of enjoying the spiritual master, enjoying his property. So, but you could apply that in any way. Like some people may like to hear from their spiritual master and they enjoy that, but they don't serve. So it's kind of, or they like to be in the presence of their spiritual master and they enjoy that. It's naturally enjoyable and it's blissful. And I'm not talking about materially enjoying, it's spiritually enjoyable. And we should be in the presence of our spiritual master whenever we can. But enjoying that would mean that you didn't imbibe anything from that in terms of instruction and connection and service. And so you just enjoy it, but you don't really serve. So my experience with Srila Prabhupada was the basics of the relationship was hearing and serving. We didn't have a lot of personal time. And even if I was in a room with Prabhupada or on a morning walk, it wasn't me and him. I was just another devotee. Nobody special. And so, our real relationship was hearing and it was service. So, and then, as I was saying before, in answer to this question about selfless love, where Prabhupada said, well, here's the Guru, serve him like you serve Krishna. So how am I supposed to serve Krishna? Hey, Krishna, I'll serve you if you give me this. No. From day one, we learn about pure devotional service. So now, Prabhupada's telling us Krishna has sent the spiritual master, so serve him like you would serve me. Krishna's saying, serve him like... So how am I supposed to serve Krishna? Without expectation, without demand. Whatever Krishna asks, I should do. So that's how selfless love for the Guru develops. And the whole process of bhakti is to become selfless. So if we're serving to get something, then we're not understanding the process of bhakti. And we're not understanding the concept of, here's Guru, Krishna sent this person. Okay, everyone in the world you want to get something from, but don't try to get anything material from this person. Here's the one person that Krishna has sent you so you can learn how to love. Here, you could say that's the position of the Guru. He teaches you how to love. And he accepts your love and affection, so you learn how to love. It's not that he needs it, but as a representative of Krishna, he accepts it. And he has a mission, and you help him with his mission. Part of his mission is to establish Krishna consciousness. So if you're serving in a temple, that's directly helping him. That's personal service. But Krishna sends somebody for you to serve selflessly, because everyone else we're serving is to get something from, right? You don't have a boyfriend or girlfriend unless you think you'll get something. If there's nothing to get, you're like, okay, nice knowing you, but it's over. I'm not getting anything from this relationship, right? That unfortunately happens after they're married. So in all our relationships, even with friends, we get something. Let's say your friend gets in an accident, is crippled. Now the only relationship you have is taking care of him. You might find that difficult. It's not fun. We used to have fun together. Now I just have to go over and massage his leg and help him get up and go to the bathroom. And that's not fun, so you probably won't want to see him as much, right? So that's how we're conditioned. So now Krishna sends the Guru and says, okay, everyone else in the world, you've served to get something. This person, no. Now you're going to learn about unconditional love. Serve this person without asking anything. So that's how you'll learn to love me, because he represents me. So if you love me, love him. It's probably just to say, love me, love my dog. So that's the way I always understood the position of Srila Prabhupada, that here he comes, and Krishna's saying, you don't love me, but you could love him. Start with him, and if you don't love, and by loving him, you will develop love for me. And you will practice, you will learn how to love by loving him, because treat him like me, see him as me, he's representing me. That's what Shastra says, that's how I always took it. So where was the question then of not serving selflessly? It didn't make any sense. And in Krishna Krsna he's saying, expectation of the Guru. We do have expectation. That expectation is that he'll take us back to Godhead, because he said he would. So the expectation should be based on what he said he will do, not on what we want him to do. So we understood that Prabhupada, through his words, is liberating us. So our expectation was kind of obvious. And we understood that without that service, we couldn't be Krishna conscious. So what was our expectation? That he would help us, not make us Krishna conscious, but he would help us, he would guide us. That was the expectation. And that he would help us learn how to do pure devotional service. And so, yes, we're conditioned, but the whole idea is that now you have a person who you should not be conditional towards. You can be conditional towards everybody else. But that person you can't be conditional towards. Because if you are, then you're not learning. How are you going to learn how to love Krishna if you can't even learn how to love the person that's representing Krishna, who Krishna told you to love? So I always, my experience was, this is so nice. I don't know how to love anybody. And Krishna sends this person to represent him, who's so beautiful and attractive, who's saving me. So it was natural. It was pretty easy to love him. He's traveling around the world as an elderly man. It was very difficult, giving up sleep to translate books, just pushing on, answering all our letters. It was pretty easy to love him. He didn't make it difficult. And all he had to do was smile, and that was like, okay, that smile got me. Okay, I'm in, I surrender. So, and Prabhupada gave us this way of life, which was so blissful, that how could we not love him? And the main thing was that the love it manifested in following his instructions, and most of his instructions were for our own benefit. So it's like, I love you. Well, how should I love you? Well, take care of yourself. That's how you love me. That's one aspect. Get up in the morning, chant your rounds. Go to Mangal Arti. Go to class. Here, read my books. That's how you love me. And all that love of him was taking care of ourselves. So, that was not so difficult. And then the other aspect was, this is my mission. This is what I'm trying to do. I can't do it alone. Help me do it. So, there's, I think, a problem. There's a problem where we saw with devotees they had a lot of appreciation for Prabhupada, but they didn't have a service mood. And so something was missing. And so, they would glorify Prabhupada and come to Vyas Puja and cry and so forth. And then they'd go away, and Prabhupada had a mission. And they weren't participating in the mission, or they couldn't work within ISKCON, they couldn't cooperate, they couldn't. Well, even that being the case, they could have done something, distributed books or whatever. And so, for us, even as young devotees, we understood that there was something missing there in these devotees, that they had this an intense appreciation for Prabhupada, but somehow or other they couldn't manage to really do anything. They couldn't manage to really follow what Prabhupada wanted. So, we don't want to say, oh, Gurudev, I love you, and then not follow the instruction, because we understand love is obedience is a manifestation of love. And so I think a lot of devotees got caught in that misunderstanding. Because I felt love, I felt an emotion in Prabhupada's presence, because Prabhupada was so merciful, so attractive, he would naturally feel an emotion. And so therefore that emotion was labeled as love, and then Prabhupada would go to the next temple and those devotees would go away, and nothing happened in their life, nothing changed. They weren't involved in spreading Krishna consciousness. So we understood that one of the ways we'd manifest our love is to spread Krishna consciousness, because that's what Prabhupada came to do. Through establishing, in the beginning it was establishing temples, and then book distribution was emphasized more, establishing deities. So maintaining temples and deities, distributing prasadam, having Rath Yatra festivals. This is all relation to the temple, and preaching in colleges, distributing books. These are the things that practically all of us were doing, if not all of us, because we wanted to help Prabhupada, because we knew that was how we manifest our love, by helping him do what he came to do, which he couldn't do on his own. He was only one man, one person. Prabhupada said, you should never call the Guru a man. You should never address him. He's not a man. He's Sakshat Hari, representative of Krishna. So anything other than selfless love would be, I would say, a flaw in the relationship. It doesn't make sense. And so we don't have selfless love. We may not have selfless love for anyone. So Krishna says, here, this person, you have love for this person. Do what this person says. Serve him. Serve his body, serve his mission. Serving ISKCON is serving your Guru. Serving in your temple is serving your Guru. Serving your deity is serving your Guru. Reading Prabhupada's books is service. Telling somebody, here, it's invitation to the temple, that's service. There's so many ways you can serve. But now, at least with this person, don't have expectations that this person is going to satisfy my sense gratification. Or another aspect, another problem I saw is that devotees would feel, oh, Prabhupada or my Guru will solve all my problems. I don't have to do anything. They'll just solve them for me. And of course, life is never like that. You know, how does a spiritual master solve your problems? Through his instructions. But obviously, you have to follow those instructions. So it's not like, okay, he'll solve all my problems, and I don't really have to do anything because I know I can just ask him and he'll solve all my problems. I don't have to work on it myself. It's not like that, and it never was like that. And devotees who thought that way always failed in their spiritual life because their dependence became a weakness, not a strength. So dependence could be a weakness, it could be a strength. So I depend on my Guru because I depend on his instructions, but that dependence becomes a strength because I follow the instruction. It becomes a weakness that I can't follow, so I keep coming back, more instructions, more advice. It's like an endless cycle of failures and, wanting the Guru, pick me up again, pick me up. No, I'll pick you up, but you have to walk. I'm only picking you up so you can walk, and I've told you how to walk, so they'll try to walk. And then you think, no, it doesn't matter, I'll fall over, he'll come and pick me up. So it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't. I've seen that sometimes association with the spiritual master creates a weakness, like a weak dependency. Oh, when I'm with you, I'm so Krishna conscious, and when you go, I fall apart. It shouldn't be that way. No, when I'm with you, I'm inspired, and when you go, I'm more inspired to practice everything you've taught. That's the idea. And I've told the story before, but I don't think you've heard it in Australia. I have a godbrother. His name is Gopavindapal, and often before he'd go out on book distribution, he'd tell me how many books he's going to distribute. So today I'll distribute 20 books. Today I will stay out late, I will distribute 50 books. He kind of knew by time, like how many books. It was also, he had a very powerful mind and very focused. And so Prabhupada was arriving this day in Los Angeles, and this day he said, I will distribute 100 books. I said, well, how will you do that? And he said, well, Prabhupada's coming to the airport, and I will see him, and once I see him, that's all the inspiration I need to distribute the 100 books. And in fact, he saw Prabhupada just for a moment. You only need to see Prabhupada for a moment. He saw him for a moment, and then he came back at night, and I said, did you do the 100 books? He said, yeah. He said, I saw Prabhupada, that was it. So I like that example. And I said to him, you don't want to come back to the temple? We're all going back, and Prabhupada's going to be there. He said, no, I feel closer at the airport here, distributing the books. So you had two aspects there. Not that seeing the Guru is like, oh, it's blissful, and then after he goes, I fall apart. No, he saw Prabhupada, it gave him inspiration to distribute the books, and that I feel closer in service than I do going back and just sitting around and looking at him. So for us, I think for many disciples of Prabhupada, they weren't, they only had a few days at most to see him. Probably some disciples that maybe didn't even see him within the year, if they lived in remote places. And you have disciples of Prabhupada that, believe it or not, never actually saw him. They joined later and they never saw him. They never met him. And they're still here today serving. They're serving and they feel very close to him. So, Prabhupada told us you should, you take the words of the spiritual master as your life and soul. That's the idea. And Prabhupada said that's what inspired him to come to America. And he read purport, Vyavasatmika Buddhi, this verse in Gita where Krishna said the devotee has pinpointed intelligence, and Vishwanath Chakravarti in his commentary, Prabhupada read it and he said you should take the instruction of the Guru as your life and soul. And Prabhupada said, no, I have to go to the West. I have to renounce everything. So Prabhupada's the example of someone who, 1923 he got the instruction, in 1969 he's on the boat. But, earlier he's trying to serve the mission, but specifically, 1966 he's on the boat, so 43 years later, so that's a very good example. You got an instruction of 43 years later, you can finally put it into practice. So, I think it's just a phenomena that I saw, that there was a lot of appreciation for Prabhupada, but in some people that appreciation never manifested in service. And for some it actually manifested in weakness. Like, I could only be Krishna conscious in Prabhupada's presence. Which is ironic, because in his presence you're learning. And so he's given you all these instructions, and if you take those instructions, you apply them, then you'll be properly situated. You'll be able to be Krishna conscious. So to say that after his association I become weaker, I understand it. Obviously in Prabhupada's presence, the presence of your Guru, you become inspired, but you're getting so many instructions. So if you execute those instructions, then naturally those instructions will make you stronger. And so Prabhupada said those instructions, that's like our lifeline, those instructions. So there's some other comments. Okay, I'm going to read your comments. So, did that answer your question, Krishna Karshani, about selfless love? I think my short answer is, how could it not be selfless? It's the only way. He's the only person we're going to learn how to selflessly love in this world. As Prabhupada said, there's no real pure love in this world, and if there's any pure love, it's going to be for Guru. And how could you not selflessly love your Guru? He's the one who's like pulling you out of the material world. And so that's important to understand, and have to be careful that appreciation is shantaras. It can be shantaras, where you just appreciate and you don't serve. So appreciation has that nature. It's part of shantaras. You just, God is great, but there's no service. And my Guru Maharaj is so wonderful. But I'm just appreciating and I'm not serving. And so your Guru Maharaj has so many things that he's doing. He needs so much help, and you can help. And the movement needs so much help. And Sundari Radha says, I experience an increase in affection and strength when given the opportunity to do direct service, yes. But the determination to render service goes up and down for many reasons. Some reasons that feel out of my control. Why do we allow this to happen when this affection is the only place we get this type of affection? Why do we not appreciate it more deeply and more determined in our service? Seems crazy, but at the same time seems to happen easily. Because what's happening is we're we're allowing the influence of the modes of nature to affect us. And so when we allow the influence of the modes of nature to affect us, then even though we want to go right, they pull us left. And if we're weak, we go left. And well, one of the things we understand and we experience is that when you have instructions from your spiritual master and you allow the modes of nature to deviate you, you feel really bad because your determination is to do the service, but by nature you're being pulled in a different direction, and so you can't do it, or you're afraid to do it, or you get lazy, you procrastinate, you get distracted, deviated, whatever it may be. And so how do you feel about that? You don't feel good. Yeah, we need to take the instruction of our spiritual master more seriously, that's for sure. And maybe, like Prabhupada it could be very heavy. So, if you say, Gurudev, I love you, he will say, you show your love for me by working with the other devotees, you show your love for me by following your vows, you show your love for me by this and that. So, he wouldn't allow us to be sentimental with that word. Okay, you say you love me, put your money where your mouth is. This is what, So I think part of it is, what we're talking about is, okay, I feel this appreciation, I feel this affection, I feel this desire for selfless service. And then we challenge you. So, okay, if that's true, why do you allow yourself to get deviated? It's like saying, Prabhupada, I love you. My life's mission is to distribute your books. And say, well, how many books have you distributed? Well, somehow or other, I get mental and I can't get out the door. Or I go on the street and I see people and I run back in the car. What's Prabhupada going to say? Oh, and that's how you show your love? By thinking about it and not doing it? No. And Prabhupada showed his love for his guru by going to the dock and looking at boats, and then going home and, eating some prasadam? No. So, you have to understand the definition of love. It's not sentimental. It's not theoretical. It's practical. Of course, in Krishna consciousness, we have affection. Krishna says, you serve me with bhakti. So that's there. Whatever service we do with bhakti. But we have to understand that part of the equation is the service. So then what I would say to you, Sundari Radha, is say, well, if you actually love your guru, then you have to question, why am I allowing myself to get deviated from the service I want to do for him, if I actually love him? It's like, And then, like we became brahmacharis, 19 years old. How do you do that? If you don't have love for your guru, I don't think you can do it. And Prabhupada said that. He said, actually, unless you have love for your guru, how will you follow the regulative principles? Chant your 16 rounds. Do all this service. How could you do it without love for your guru? There's no force more powerful than love. And that force is so powerful that teenage men become celibate monks. Try to figure that out. That's impossible. It's impossible for a teenage boy raised in the West to become celibate. It's impossible. You can't do it. But love conquers all. And so because of our love for Prabhupada, we said we'd do it, and we all did it. It's amazing, isn't it? Big long hair, hippies, shave their head. That's amazing. And going off to new places, young boys and girls, and being successful. That's amazing. So it was all stemming from love, and the love was manifested in the service. So I think maybe also what might help as an answer to this question is, don't allow yourself to define love just as an emotion. You have to define it as a complete synergistic process of emotion done with service done with affection, not just affection and appreciation. Affection and appreciation is necessary, but service is also a manifestation of the affection and appreciation. And without that service, one might have to question, is there really affection and appreciation? if you really love me, distribute my books. If you really love me, do this. If you have any affection for me, do this. And Prabhupada would say things like that. If you have any affection for me, then I humbly request that you... And so this was Prabhupada's position. He didn't force, he didn't say, if you love me, then do this. He said, if you love me, then you kindly consider. This is what love means. You help me distribute my books, open temples, do this and that. And if you look at the lives of Prabhupada's disciples, and they're doing so much, and you ask them why you're doing this, they're not going to say, I'm doing this because I like it. Yeah, I like to travel every week and, sleep in a different bed every week, and it's really great, wherever I go, all these people jump up and down and say, Haribol, I love you, and that's why I'm doing it, because I just love that. I love to be glorified, and I love to be served. No, we want to serve, we want to go, and that's our service. And that, nobody's doing it because this is what they like to do. They're doing it because Prabhupada asked them. And even if we're doing something that we like to do, if Prabhupada said, I don't want you to do it anymore, we'd stop it. So that's why we do it. Not because we like it or dislike it, but because that's what Prabhupada wants. So that's the idea. So, you want to question your affection. Do I really love my spiritual master? If I really love him, then how could I show that? How is it manifesting? It has to manifest more beyond appreciation. And if I really love him, and then I allow myself to fall apart, he's given so many instructions, and so many instructions I don't follow, and then I say, but I love him. No, you can't say that. So we have to, we want to love our spiritual master. But how do you love him? It's, he gives you a service and then you don't do it, and then you say, Dear Gurudev, I love you. And what does he think? Yeah, right, I appreciate that. Well, if you love me, what about this service that you completely forgot to do? And what about following the 4 regular principles and chanting your rounds? And what about this and that? And as I think one of you just said, but you, in that service, you'll feel life, you'll feel close to your Guru, you'll feel strength, you'll feel everything in that service comes from it. So and as soon as you do it, you'll realize, oh, I should have done this earlier. Why was I procrastinating? And how can you be close to your Guru with no service, without following? It's not like an ordinary relationship where you can be close to someone where there's no exchange of service and hearing. But in relationship to Guru, it's all about hearing and service. That's where the closeness comes from. And you all experience that. You all know that by your own experience. So then Sundari Radha, then I would say, okay, if you love your Guru, you're not going to allow yourself to be affected by the modes of nature which are deviating you, or whatever is deviating you. You're not going to allow that to affect you because you love your Guru and you want to serve him, and so you do it. You do it. It's a volunteer movement, and the Guru can't force, and the Guru won't force. And Prabhupada said that, I can't force you. It's a volunteer movement. So it's really up to the disciple, because the Guru can't force. And he doesn't. I mean, sometimes he might, when necessary, but Prabhupada's point was, I can't force you. I mean, I could try, but ultimately you have to agree. So, yeah, so let's see what else is you're saying. There's an interesting thing that I've noticed, that many disciples of Prabhupada who were close to him personally, after his leaving, had serious problems maintaining their Krishna consciousness. But those who were serving from a distance seemed to be stronger and doing amazing things for Prabhupada even now. So maybe close personal relationship with the Guru might be dangerous, and maybe it is a kind of paradox. But it may make us weak. Yeah, that's true. Both things are true. There are many that were close to Prabhupada that are still close, and many I mean, I don't know if anyone's analyzed this, but certainly it could be that unhealthy dependence where you were only inspired and strong in the presence of your guru. And without his presence you became weak, and you became used to that presence, and you had so much of it that it gave you so much strength that without it you couldn't go on. Now, for a very young devotee, it's natural you need the presence of your guru. You want to hear something really interesting? This is so special. Occasionally, Prabhupada would get a letter from a devotee who was a senior devotee, respected and done a lot of service, and they would be having difficulty. And Prabhupada said, if you can't sort out the difficulty, then you can come and travel with me. So he, and occasionally he made that offer to his disciples. Isn't that interesting? Come travel with, you're having trouble, come travel with me. So it's not that we avoid the personal association. Prabhupada said, he said in his books, if you have the opportunity to serve your spiritual master personally, you should do it. It's not like, oh, my guru is coming, I'm going to go to another city. Why? Because I want to serve in separation. Now, if you had service in another city that he wanted you to do and you might not have his association, that's another thing. But to voluntarily go to another city, that's not the philosophy. But it's true that some devotees may only do well in the personal association. And that was true for some of Prabhupada's disciples. I mean, we all had difficulty when Prabhupada left, and some that had more personal association had more difficulty because they had grown dependent on it. And that was my point, that you want to have dependence, which is healthy. So that dependence means that I learn in the presence of my guru, and I take that inspiration in separation. And he's, so you have to see the instructions of your guru as kind of like currency. Well, my spiritual master was here, he gave me so much money. So to say, oh, my spiritual master's left and I'm broke. No, you're not broke at all. You have this wealth of knowledge and association that he gave you. To think that you're broke is a misunderstanding. You just can't find the money. So find it. He gave it to you. Oh, I put it in my back pocket. Oh, yeah, there it is. So you remember the instruction, you remember the association, you remember the guidance, and then you go on in separation. And as we said, as you're saying here, that some devotees were stronger at a distance from Prabhupada. So that's important. Gopi Jivana says, taking on the preaching mission of our Guru is one of the principal ways in which to become stronger in our own spiritual lives. Yes, definitely. And you'll experience that. Taking on the preaching mission means it requires sacrifice. And so we do a lot of things. As I was saying, personally, we probably wouldn't do if we had a choice. But because it's necessary in the preaching mission, we do it. And we feel closer to our Guru. I don't like flying. It's not fun, especially, well, sometimes it's fun if there's not a lot of people on the plane. And the reason it's fun is nobody can call me. Nobody, I'm alone and I can actually just peacefully hear and chant. I don't know anybody on the plane and there's no digital communication. So it's wow, this is like being in a cave. But generally, I don't like traveling. And I'm sitting at home in Alachua, and it's hey, now time to travel, pack things up. It's uprooting. Go get on a plane with a bunch of people you don't know in a little tube, all squeezed together. People eating all kinds of strange things and watching all kinds of strange movies. So why do we do that? Not because we like it, but because that's what we have to do to preach. And so then we end up liking it even though we don't like it, because it's service. And so it's the love that dominates. It's how could you do all these things? Is it so austere? I said, no, it's not austere. It's just you feel love by doing it. Although it's austere, yeah, it is austere. But you feel love by doing it because it's service to your Guru. So that's your experience. Otherwise, I don't want to do this, I don't like to do this. No, that means you're not experiencing the love. You're experiencing the austerity of the service, not the connection with your guru. No, it's your guru who gave you the service. So now, because you're doing the service, you should feel this connection. I'm doing this, whatever it is, opening this temple, distributing this book, sitting on this plane, giving this class, staying up late at night and finishing this service. Why am I doing that? I'm doing it because that's what my guru wants. So I'm feeling the connection with my guru, not the austerity of the service. And that's how it can be done. So if you're feeling the austerity of the service and not the connection with the person who gave you the service, there's something's wrong with that equation. Enrique says, yes, wow. I so resonate with this aspect of service and separation. Makes you feel closer. Yeah. So then, it's the same point. Why are you doing this service? Because my spiritual master wants me. And therefore, naturally I feel close to him. Who do I think of when I'm doing the service? I think of the person who gave me the service. And so many of you never met Prabhupada, but you feel close to Prabhupada. Because your guru's service is Prabhupada's service. Or you're directly engaged in service by your temple president in Prabhupada's temple. He says, I feel closer to you now when I'm struggling, but at the same time I am following the instructions. Thank you for this new experience. Yes. Healthy dependence. What's the greatest dependence we can have on our guru? Is depend on his instructions and his service. And I know through his instructions and service I get his mercy. And without his mercy, I'm not going to do very well. I'm just going to struggle. So, yes. Take the I think this is a good example. Think of the instructions and the personal association you get as currency. And if you're not doing well, it means you put the money somewhere and you forgot where you put it. You forgot, oh, I put the money there. Oh, I can afford to buy so many things. I didn't realize that my guru gave me all this money. I just kind of forgot where I put it. So go get that money out and see, oh, he's given me so many valuable gems here. I just have to apply them. Right? Rasa Prada says, I deeply believe that love for our guru as a father begins when we realize that everything he wants for us is our benefit in life and to save us from the miserable life. And his only interest is to serve Krishna, and serving him and following his instructions not only shows our love for him, but Krishna notices it and he reciprocates, yes. Because we are serving his disciple and following his, yes, perfect. And then Rasa Prada is sharing his realization. Although your realization is our philosophy, but that's your experience. And everyone has this experience when they serve this way. Priyarani says, sometimes even if we think we're doing our part of practice, still you feel the modes of nature affecting you. For example, maybe I may not be attracted to things. People of my age are... Whoa. Let's go back. Sometimes even if we think we're doing our part of practice, still you feel the modes of nature affecting. For example, maybe I may not be attracted to things the people of my age are, inasmuch as I appear much detached, but maybe I'm attached to something else. And it's hard to get detached from that, even though I might be trying hard. And maybe that attachment isn't so bad in a way, that it's not an obstacle to my Krishna consciousness, but it keeps us feeling on a roller coaster. So isn't it an example of being affected by lower modes? Yes, but you can't... if we're affected by the lower modes, or you could say it's the lower modes, you could say it's your conditioning. You can look at it as, in a sense, an unavoidable part of trying to be Krishna conscious, that there's going to be struggles, there's going to be obstacles which are coming from our past conditioning. But it's true that we can say, if we fully have the mercy of Guru and Krishna, those obstacles will be very easy to deal with. And when we lack that mercy, they become more difficult to deal with. So part of the way that we deal with them is tolerating them. Okay, they're there, I'm affected. But the mercy of the Guru and the mercy of his service is so powerful that I should at least be able to continue enthusiastically in my devotional service, and gradually those obstacles should be diminished. So again, we go back to the mercy of the Guru. By the mercy of the Guru, everything's possible. So that's how we should think, that if I'm weak in my Krishna consciousness, then I need more mercy, or somehow I'm lacking mercy due to not following instructions properly. Something's missing in the mercy department, and I need more of it. And so I have to look and say, well, am I chanting my rounds properly? Am I doing the things that my spiritual master has asked me to do? Am I at least trying to execute his instructions? And maybe someday I can say his or her instructions. Well, I guess you can say his or her, because you can have Siksha Gurus who are female. I should actually change that now. Their instructions. Are you executing their instructions, which means you can have more than one guru? And that guru could be a woman also. So yeah. So that's how we feel. If we're having a weakness in our devotional service, we think, we look back and say, what am I doing wrong? Am I not obeying the order of my guru? Am I not obeying Prabhupada's order? Am I not obeying the orders or service of my superiors? We look for that. And the more that we're obeying, the more mercy will come, and the more you'll get off the roller coaster. Because when the mercy comes, everything good comes from that. So Priyarani's question is how to overcome. Through the mercy of Guru, through the service of Guru. A lot of times we have service for our Guru and we just forget that we have it and we don't do it. Or so many other things come up. And so sometimes, we have to look at, is something missing that I promised I would do, or something missing in my sadhana? Am I not reading sufficiently? Whatever it is. And see what's missing and increase that, and you'll see things will change. Sundari Radha says, yes, I get pulled in trying to please too many people at once, and then it becomes more about who is pressuring me the most in the moment. But you don't do this whatsoever. I need to be more conscious. Need to be more conscious in my responses to these situations. Well, you have a service to your guru, so that has to be prioritized. I do have so many things which are important, but if you have service to your guru, like let's say someone is dedicated to book distribution, they can't allow things to get in the way in their life of their book distribution, so they have to prioritize. Okay, so many people expect so much of me, but I have to prioritize. I have to take care of everyone in my life, but I also have to know when and where and how to put energy into what's important. So it's a balancing act. But at least if you can't serve your spiritual master, you have to be like Prabhupada, who 43 years later finally could fully execute it. But my point with Prabhupada is he when he got that instruction, he was always thinking how to do it. So sometimes circumstantially you don't have the time because you have responsibilities. But that instruction was always there, and you could see for Prabhupada, he started Back to Godhead magazine 1944 or something. So that was 21 years after he got that instruction, but he was in a better position at that point. And so, somehow or other, that instruction, we're going to make it happen. I never forgot that instruction. So circumstantially, it may be that you can't execute it fully, or it may be that you can and you're just not prioritizing. But whatever the case is, that the vitality and energy of that instruction must remain prominent. Yes, my Guru Maharaj wants me to do this. I have to do this. How, I don't know, but I have to do it. I have to make this happen. That I haven't lost that desire, and I'm in this situation, I have to sort this out and sort that out. But I'm going to make it happen. At least that much should be there. And then, so Prabhupada's that example for us. Fully vitalized by an instruction he got 42 years ago, and now he's on the energy that got him on that boat was an instruction he got 42 years ago on the first day he met his Guru. That's amazing, isn't it? Usually with us, if the instruction's like 3 weeks old, we forget it. It's like it's vital for the first 3 days, and then and here 43 years later, the instruction, 42 years later, the instruction is as if he just got it yesterday. So at least that much should be there. Eddie says, first time I saw you, I felt a natural desire to serve you. After 3 years, serve you, I felt like in heaven when you give me my new name. This changed my life. I love you, and my service is so time demanding that I cannot finish my rounds. Please forgive me. So finish them the next day. That happened to me yesterday. Somehow or other. We still have a few rounds left. But we're up early and we will finish them. So sometimes it even happens to me. Yesterday was crazy because I gave class and then I did my exercise and then we went to the temple and this, that, and the next thing. We didn't get to chant enough. Sindhu Lali from Russia is with us. Himena from Holland. We have an international crew. Priya from London. Amrita Radhika from New Govardhan, or on the way to New Govardhan. Yeah. Tara from South Africa. Sundari Radha, New Govardhan. Bhakti Lata, Brisbane. June and Tony from Holland. Tara has a question. If I'm doing service for certain preaching missions, then is that considered service to my Guru? Yes. Even though my Guru may not know what I'm doing and the service is not something that is directly helping my Guru in his own preaching, yes. Because your Guru wants you to serve in your local area and follow the local people. So, yes, that is service to your Guru. And your Guru also has service you can do as well. So everything we do to spread Krishna consciousness is service to Prabhupada. And any service to Prabhupada is certainly service to our Gurus. But if your Guru asks you to do something, and you say, yes, I'm going to do it, and he says, I'm counting on you, and then you say, well, I didn't do it because we had service in the local temple. At least tell him, is it okay? They've given me this service. So service is absolute, but if it's a direct service that you've taken up as a responsibility to your Guru, then that should be dealt with also. Krishna Karshani says, don't you think that the way women see Guru-disciple relationship, then the man see it and execute it? I think she means difference. We women are more sentimental. Do men and women see relationship with Guru differently? Yes and no. I mean, some men see it the way some women see it. Some women see it the way some men see it. But probably naturally, the relationship father and son, father and daughter has its own uniqueness. So yes, due to the different nature, it will be a little different. But sentimental is also good, because sentiment Sentimental means sentiment means feeling. But I think it goes back to the point where if the feeling is there, it should be balanced with service, that the feeling should energize the service, not just the feeling of affection. Women have a lot of affection. It's their motherly nature. I once told this story that I had cut my hand. There was a little blood on my hand. It was, I don't know. Sometimes, you scrape your hand accidentally on something. So there's a little blood, and I was in the temple. I didn't really notice it, or it was coming out, and I didn't have a tissue, so I just thought it would scab. I couldn't do anything. I think I was chanting my rounds, or I was walking around the temple. And like within a minute, 3 women said, "Oh, is there anything I can do? You're bleeding." And not one man said anything. So that's the mother nature. So naturally the female nature is more, "Oh, Gurudev, take care of yourself. Make sure you're eating well," and, like that. So that's natural. That'll be different. And the men are more, driven. We're going to conquer the world. Yeah. Pull down the empires of our city and take over, So not that women wouldn't think that way, not that men wouldn't think, can I help you physically, but I think in terms of sentimentality, it can be for anybody, man or woman. And sentimentality is good. Prabhupada, he appreciated the affection devotees expressed. They expressed it in letters, they expressed it in Vyas Pujas. It's not that he said don't be sentimental in the sense of don't express your emotions. But emotions expressed that contradict your actual position, then that has to be dealt with. "Oh, Gurudev, you're everything, I surrender, you're my life." And then, Vyas Puja is over and you never hear from that person again. That's not what we're trying to cultivate. The emotion, the affection, the feelings, that's good. But we're not only cultivating that, but we're understanding that if those emotions are real, then they're going to be balanced with the service. Otherwise, we have to question those emotions. What are those? Is that really how you're feeling? Or you think you're feeling that way? Of course, those emotions are about appreciation. We don't deny that. That one will appreciate their guru. But appreciation should be backed up or balanced with service. Amrita Radhika says, "I just started listening and it's funny that this is the topic tonight. I have a group chat with some close devotee friends, and today I shared them a realization I had while listening to your lecture on the Shringadev, and you said some very key and relevant points about anarthas. I shared with my friends that whenever I hear you speak, and no matter what subject matter, I realize that without you I would be absolutely nowhere in my spiritual life. I'm so humbled every time I hear you speak. So we should be so grateful for the dedication and time you spend helping us, and your instructions, and yes, show your love for me. Bye." Benarati says, "This class is painful." Benarati, your service to me is to smile and be happy. And Sundari says, she can improve. And Priyarani says, "This is in context with the answer you gave. Do you mean anything any senior devotee who can instruct me tells me I must listen? Because everyone can be a 6-year guru, as I can learn from everyone. Even if I feel..." This is a trick question. Not that she's trying to trick me, but even if I feel I don't have to, or I can't, or the instruction is in contrast with what I get from another devotee, I must act according to my situation. I can't be so austere comparing to another person. contradictory instructions, instructions that contradict the instructions of your guru. Should I listen to every senior devotee? I can only give a general answer because I don't know the situation. If I knew the practical situation, I could give a more practical answer, but the general answer is yes and no. Okay? Next question. General, yeah, we should listen to senior devotees, and if there are instructions which are contradictory, then we may want to go to our guru and say, I've got these contradictory instructions, can you guide me? Something like that. I think that's the best answer for now. Radha Priya woke up at 3:30. Congratulations. Keep it going. It's the best time of day. Okay, so it's time for us to chant japa. So we're going to have to say goodbye. And then I'll be in Mexico in a few days. Well, I give Tuesday morning I give Bhagavatam class in Los Angeles, and I think what time does class start? 7:30, 8 o'clock, 7:45.
So the 7, yeah, about 7:48.
So by 7:45 class should be going, if you like to watch. And then when we're in Mexico, we can broadcast anything. Any classes I give, I might give class every night. So we'll broadcast those, and then we'll keep you informed. Yeah. That'll be the morning in Australia, the evening classes in Mexico. So you might be able to watch. But in Europe, it'll probably be too late. It would be like 2 in the morning or something. Okay. Okay, Vanarati, keep smiling. Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll see you all in Mexico, anyone who wants to come. Radhapriya is going to fly in from Alachua, or from wherever she is. Okay, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanand.